Hello again. This is morning, but I think this will be the final video I make before going to the Ghost Ranch meeting. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the Deepland story, not from a technical point of view, just from a point of view of, how it's made, what it's about, how it's put together, that kind of thing. So the first thing to say about it is that the Deepland story is made both for the purpose of telling the rigorous story that is clearly not about the actual universe, but is a rigorous landscape of thought about the fictitious universe that follows from a historical line of fiction. So you had Flatland and Sphereland. Those two stories are about two-dimensional creatures, and the general viewpoint of them over history has been that the idea is that they're missing something that we have. We have an up-down dimension, they don't. So we think they're missing another dimension that is a pointing dimension, except for them, their senses don't get that. We have three pointing dimensions, they have two. So that's the idea, they're missing something. So the twist in this story is that, well, let me back up before I tell you the twist. The general plot is that there's a crew of inner characters, and though it's a fun story because I make that really up from my life. I mean, I have inner characters in my life, and also in my life I spent many years off and on going to that Spirit Valley, the birdhouse, and that's where the spiritual center of this thinking is in my heart. That's the way to think of it. And so the story carries a lot of that experience. My inner characters tell the story, and some of the characters in the story were actually in the valley with me when I was contemplating this stuff. The setting of the story is in the valley around the birdhouse. One of the characters is a crow, which there really was a crow there. Another character is a mountain lion called Peleg. There really was a mountain lion there that I called that. I did see him one time, close up. So it's a fun story for my family in that it brings out the reality of all that time I spent in the Colorado hills there overlooking a valley. But the twist is this. In the prior stories, Flatland and Sphereland, the idea was we people were like in the audience of that story listening to it, we put ourselves in the view of looking down on those people as having missing a dimension. In this story, an inner crew flies off to Sphereland, what they thought would be that land of flat creatures, and kind of like a missionary expedition to go teach them about what they're missing. But what happens is that our inner crew finds out immediately from the elders who meet them when they get there that the name of their place to them is not Sphereland, it's Deepland. And so there begins the really interesting lesson for our crew, in that the elders of this Deepland universe they're called poppers, and they're called poppers just simply because of the idea of a children's book where the three-dimensional creatures pop up when the pages are turned. From a two-dimensional book, you get a pop up into a three-dimensional story. And that's kind of the idea here. So poppers are the elders of this place called Deepland, and they set about to teach Bickham, who's one of the inner characters, teach Bickham their stories of physicality, which end up in a story of relativity that's exactly like ours as far as the behavior and the equations. And so, but the twist is this. What they teach our crew is that no, you think we're missing another dimension that you have, but in fact, we think that you're missing the point that there's not another dimension that we're missing. We have our story is inner story. So we concentrate on the inner realm, and all of our mathematics comes from studying the inner behavior rather than trying to imagine another sensory dimension. And so the story flips. Instead of us going to teach them what they're missing, our crew goes and finds out what it is that we're missing. That's kind of the plot. This is not a normal fantasy story, in that it's not going to be a fun little read, because the whole purpose of it is to expose rigorously mathematics that's missing. And this mathematics does not require that you go up the ladder above, say, classical math. It instead asks you to learn some simpler mathematics that has been omitted from the books. So another thing about the Deepland story that you might find interesting is that it ends up being about not outer things like energy, but about energy, inner energy that flows up from within and out in every direction. And that energy has the same form mathematically as Einstein's E equals mc squared. And all of that is rigorous. But the point that you have to understand is that it's a landscape of thought. It's protected from concern about things that people might complain about misalignment with our own universe. I mean, the math is way different, and it's going to upset some people who are committed in their lives to the stories that we have today. But the point is that this is a standalone thing. It's grounded in itself, in the roots of awareness. It springs from that, and it's an exploration that isn't tied to physics. It just runs parallel to it. And so we can agree with somebody who says, oh, that's not like our universe. We'd say, fine, but it is like this one, and it is worthy of thinking about. And it is rich in thought that supports alignment between spiritual and physical thinking. So that's all I want to say. And I look forward to seeing you at the Ghost Ranch. And those of you who aren't going there or don't know anything about it, get in touch with me if you're interested in this. I'll be happy to talk about it. I'm hungry to talk about it. So thanks.